3, 6, and 7. Lift high the cross, the love of Christ proclaim, till all the world adore his sacred name. Led on their way by this triumphant sign, the hosts of God in hungering ranks combine. Lift high the cross, the love of Christ proclaim, till all the world adore his sacred name. O Lord, once lifted on the glorious tree, as thou hast promised, draw the word to thee. Lift high the cross, the love of Christ proclaim, till all the world adore his sacred name. Each newborn servant of the crucified bears on the brow the seal of him who died. Lift high the cross, the love of Christ proclaim, till all the world adore his sacred name. So shall our song of triumph ever be, praise to the crucified for victory. Lift high the cross, the love of Christ proclaim, till all the world adore his sacred name. And thank you for that gorgeous harmony. That was lovely.
Now I'll say the prayer of the order. O earthly Father, you have sent us your Son to teach us things pertaining to your heavenly kingdom. Give your blessing to our order, wherever it may be throughout the world. Grant that we, your daughters, ever may discern your truth and bear the cross through the battles of our earthly life. Give us strength to overcome temptations and the grace to work to spread your kingdom and to gather your scattered sheep within your fold. Pour out upon us the sevenfold gift of the Holy Spirit, that we may always remember it is your work we are called to do, that all we think, do, or say may be pleasing in your sight. We ask it all for his sake, our King and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen. Now the motto, please. For his sake, I am but one, but I am one. I cannot do everything, but I can do something. What I can do, I ought to do. What I ought to do, by the grace of God, I will do. Lord, what will you have me do?
I'll try not to bore you. First thing, which none of the other daughters know that I'm going to do, is something that my husband has written for all of us. A universal tribute to the women of the world. Ladies, I truly believe you are burdened with the gift of life, that being the central source of human life on earth, from conception to final trimester, culminating in birth. The female bears the burden. This, as nurturing continues and parenting begins. Understanding parenting ends when you are no longer a parent. For mankind, by true measure, a sister, a mother, a wife, there is no greater gift than these. Then, much to our chagrin, there is the quiet burden of the dawning years, when more than likely you are saddled with the unenviable task to console the father, mother the mother, and survive the husband. This, as you struggle to stay true to the course left in the wake of your loss, as you mourn in the devastation of your pain. The tacit transition embodied in the female's manifest destiny is unfathomable. A living resource seldom captured, to be praised and honored under man's narrow sense of authority. Women of the world, you are truly a magnificent creature, to be valued and adored on every continent, in every home. Our thanks to you, and all thanks be to God. Okay, now to the mundane stuff. The Daughters of the King, the Order of the Daughters of the King, which is a registered trademark, is an order for women who are communicants of the Episcopal Church, churches in communion with it, or churches in the historic episcopate, but not in communion with it. Our membership currently includes women in the Anglican, Episcopal, Lutheran, the ELCA, and Roman Catholic churches. In 1885, a young 31-year-old Margaret Maggie Juliet Franklin, a wife and mother of two, led a women's Bible study in Manhattan, New York, a parish that was known at that time as the Holy Sepulchre in New York, and now is the Church of the Resurrection. This group of women called themselves Daughters of the King. Margaret, seeking a deeper, more passionate relationship with Christ and his church, calling a meeting of the group on the eve of Easter. The purpose of the meeting was to arouse their interest and urge their cooperation as a class of definitive workers for Christ and his church. On that night in 1885, what would become known as the Order of the Daughters of the King was born. Through evangelism, we try to reach those who do not know the love of Jesus Christ. We make a conscious effort to reach out to those who are new to the community and looking for a church home, and to those who are in hospitals, to shut-ins, and to those who are in sorrow or personal trouble. We do all we can to help newcomers experience God's love through the fellowship of church. I don't need it. Daughters recognize that our faith is not to be private faith, hidden in our hearts. Our faith is to be loving and joyously proclaimed to the world, so that Jesus Christ, lifted up in our lives and in our words, might draw all those to him, that all might experience his love and saving grace. The organization was founded, as I said, in 1885 and considered itself an order rather than a society or a guild. It was originally only open to female members of the Protestant Episcopal Church in the United States of America, or the Episcopal Church of the United States. There were 5,000 members as of 1923, and its headquarters were at 85 Bible House, New York City. Members of the Episcopal Church, or members of the denominations in communion with it, may become Daughters of the King. Daughters of the King is a sister organization to the Brotherhood of St. Andrews, a comparable men's organization affiliated with the Episcopal Church. The Daughters' Constitution was said to be a close copy of that of the Brotherhood. Women, why would we restart something? Just use theirs and fix it, because it's obviously not right. The rules of the order. Members take a lifelong vow to follow a rule of life, a rule of prayer, and a rule of service. Each daughter promises to make a conscious and consistent effort to live out the definition of her life, doing all she can through her words and deeds to bring others to Christ, especially women and girls, into a relationship with Jesus and into the fellowship of the church. Okay, because I like to hear my voice. I just love hearing my voice, right? I figured I would stop talking because I have the other part I'm going to do is who St. Clair is. And what I thought was, since this is about mission and missionary, I'll give y'all 5 minutes or so to literally, before you hear anything else, write down what you think right now a missionary is. Just before you get information. So what do you think a missionary is?
After the presentation.
Oh, you do, yeah, you'll get, that's it. Before you hear the information, was what I said, write what you think it is now. And it may change. It may remain the same. Because you may have information that I don't, and I don't really know what a missionary does today. I can guess. I could be wrong.
Feel free to serve yourselves if you want. And the restrooms, I forgot to mention, you already know, they're here to the left, and there's some down that hall if you need to use the restroom.
born a missionary of any kind that you know of? Lots.
It looks like her writing's not writing anymore, so y'all can listen to my voice some more. Okay, St. Clair. First of all, I was trying to figure out why we chose St. Clair as the chapter. Because I'm one of the original members, and that goes back to like 35 years. And I believe it was like a goal. If we could be as pure in heart and as open and loving as she was, then I'm still working on that part. St. Clair of Assisi. She was born July 16, 1194, and died August 11, 1253. One of the more sugary movies made about Francis of Assisi pictures Claire as a golden-haired beauty floating through the sun-drenched fields, a sort of one-woman counterpart to the new Franciscan order. That's really far from the truth. The beginning of her religious life was indeed movie material. Having refused to marry at 15, Claire was moved by a dynamic preaching of Francis. He became her lifelong friend and spiritual guide. At 18, Claire escaped from her father's home one night, was met on the road by friars carrying torches, and in the poor little chapel called Porticello, received a rough woolen habit, exchanged her jeweled belt for a common rope, and sacrificed her long tresses to Francis's scissors. He placed her in a Benedictine convent, which her father and uncles immediately stormed in rage. Claire clung to the altar of the church and threw aside her veil to show her chopped hair, and remained adamant. 16 days later, her sister Agnes joined her, and many others came. She lived a simple life of great poverty, austerity, and complete seclusion from the world, according to a rule which Francis gave them as a second order. At age 21, Francis obliged Claire on the obedience to accept the office of abbess, one she exercised until her death. The poor ladies went barefoot, slept on the ground, ate no meat, and observed almost complete silence. It's definitely not me. Later, Claire, like Francis, persuaded her sisters to moderate this rigor. Our bodies are not made of brass. The greatest emphasis, of course, was on gospel property. They possessed no property, even in common. Subsisting, it's a new word. They lived on contributions. Obviously, that's not a word for me today. When even the Pope tried to persuade Claire to mitigate this practice, she showed her characteristic firmness. I need to be absolved from my sins, but I do not wish to be absolved from the obligation of following Jesus Christ. Contemporary accounts glow with admiration of Claire's life in the convent of San Damiano in Assisi. She served the sick, washed the feet of begging nuns. She came from prayer, it was said, with her face so shining it dazzled those about her. She suffered serious illness from the last 27 years of her life. Her influence was such that popes, cardinals, and bishops often came to consult her. Claire herself never left the walls of San Damiano. Francis always remained her great friend and inspiration. Claire was always obedient to his will and to the great ideals of the gospel in which he was making real. A well-known story concerned her prayers and trust. Claire had the Blessed Sacrament placed on the walls of the convent when it faced attack by invading Saracens. Does it please you, O God, to deliver into the hands of these beasts the defenseless children I have nourished your love? I beseech you, dear Lord, protect these women whom I am now unable to protect. To her sisters, she said, don't be afraid. Trust in Jesus. The Saracens fled. Claire of Assisi was born, like I said, July 16, 1194, in Assisi, Duchy of Spoleto, Italy. She was canonized in 1255, and her feast day is celebrated August 11th. Claire was designated the patron saint of television in 1958 by Pope Pius the 12th, because when Claire was very ill, she would often attend Mass. She could not attend Mass and was reportedly able to see and hear it on the wall in her room. She's also the patron saint of eye disease, goldsmiths, laundry, embroiderers, gliders, I have no idea what the gliders are, good weather, needle workers, telephones, telegraph, and television. That is St. Clair.
Good morning. I'm Cheryl Kimbrough, and I'm very honored to introduce our speaker, Alyson Rockhold. Alyson is a native Estonian. She was a medical missionary in Haiti, Zambia, and Tanzania. Since returning to Houston in 2020, she started a nonprofit to feed and house the elderly in Tanzania. She also runs a ghostwriting business where she helps people write books. In her spare time, and that's in quotes, she enjoys yoga, reading, hiking, and camping. When asked a fun fact about her life, she said, Ryan and I have made it a goal in our marriage to hike the entire Appalachian Trail from Georgia to Maine. We actually started it on our honeymoon. We've done 3 hiking camping trips and covered 160 miles so far. That's only 7% of the trail. So we've got our work cut out for us. Wow. I'm tired just imagining that much walking. But it must be fun as well as challenging. She and her husband started going to Grace in February 2021 and feel so blessed to call Grace their home church. Please help me welcome Alyson Rockhold.
Thank you so much for that introduction. said she's on her way, so she'll jump in when she gets here. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yes.
Good? All right. Okay, so, let's see if I can get this started.
You're not moving.
No, not moving.
It's not moving, Scott.
Scott, is there a way that I can get this to move?
That's a great question, Alyson.
Oh, okay.
Magic hands.
Yes, perfect. Okay, so I was given the topic of the role of a missionary in modern society. We're going to go over an overview. We'll talk about mission. Bertha and I will share about our journeys, and then we'll try to define a missionary in one word. So we'll see how we do with that, and then we'll answer any questions. So to understand what a missionary is, we have to start with mission. It's part of the word. It's right there. And we all have one. I believe that our mission as Christians come from this verse in Matthew 22. When Jesus was asked, what's the greatest commandment? You know, think of a commandment. It's something that we do, something we're ordered to do. It's a mission. And Jesus answers that we've got to love God with everything we've got. And the second thing is we've got to love our neighbor as ourselves. So I feel like that's the mission of every Christian. Love and love. We have to love God, and we have to love others as we love ourselves. And that mission is the same, whether you're in Texas or Tanzania, wherever life takes you, that is our mission. And I wanted to kind of differentiate mission from calling. So we say, you know, all Christians have this mission to love God, love others, love ourselves. But then we carry out that mission in different ways. So that would be our calling. A missionary takes that mission on the road. A teacher takes the mission to the classroom, etc. I didn't have enough room to put all the possible callings. But whatever your vocation is, you're taking that mission to love God, love others in whatever realm of life that you're in. So I wanted to kind of start with this understanding of mission because it's part of the word missionary, but also for two other reasons. To be perfectly honest, when I was given the topic of this talk, I was kind of nervous about it because when I introduce myself, if I say I'm a missionary, which honestly I don't often do because when I say I'm a missionary, one of two things tends to happen. Either it's almost like I'm put on a pedestal that people are like, oh, I could never do that, or that's such a hard thing, how could you do that? And I want to look right back at them and say, I could never be a chaplain and take my mission to the hospital. I couldn't do that. We're not called to do each other's callings. We're called to do our calling, and no calling is better than the other. They're just different. They're all how we carry out that mission in the world. So that's one thing that I was kind of nervous about the title missionary. But the other thing, and I'm hoping Bertha will be here soon because she's helping me with this part, but if we're going to talk about missions, we've got to start with the honest truth that missionaries have done some terrible things in the world, that they've been a part of colonization, they've been a part of trying to say that American culture was better than other cultures. There's been some really bad things that have been done by missionaries in the name of mission. So when Bertha comes, she'll share some of her stories of growing up in Cameroon and how she's seen that at play. But we want to make sure that when we're discussing missionaries that we do it very openly and we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. So with an understanding of mission and calling, we're going to share a little bit about our journeys. There's beautiful Bertha when she's here. She said she has something to share about this outfit and to talk about her time. But we'll go ahead and move on to my missions journeys. So is there a way to move backwards?
Use the arrow key on the keyboard.
Okay, there we go. All right, so I was asked to share about my missions journeys as kind of an understanding of what my background is and why I'm giving this talk. So my mission journey all starts with the Vintons. The Vintons were my neighbors growing up. Dawn and George Vinton were my grandparents' age, and they would take care of us. We were very close to them. And George had grown up as a missionary kid in the Congo. And so I grew up hearing about missions, and then their son Steve and daughter-in-law Susan were missionaries in the Congo, and then Tanzania. They've now been there over 30 years. So that was kind of my understanding, hearing their stories about missionaries. In 8th grade, I went on a retreat. That was kind of a time of prayer and discerning what God was calling us to as we entered high school. And that's where I really felt God impress it on my heart that he was calling me to be a missionary. And I was so excited and, wanted to tell everyone about it. So when I started high school, we had something called Fish Week, where a freshman is, matched up with a senior, and you have a week of fun activities. One of those days, the senior is supposed to dress the freshmen up like what they want to be when they grow up. So I said, I want to be a missionary. And the senior did not know what does a missionary wear. I mean, any ideas? What would you, if somebody said, I want to be a missionary, what would you dress them up as? Any thoughts? Boots and a blouse? Yeah? Sackcloth, whatever the locals wear. That's a great one. So she chose to dress me up as a nun. And I had to walk around all day in a black habit with the full head covering, and I think that's why I didn't date very much my freshman year. But I wasn't deterred. I still had this calling on my life. So after I finished high school, I actually went to study missions. That's actually a degree you can get from Abilene Christian University. And after a year of studying missions, I was feeling really like, okay, I've been studying about missions, but I've never actually been overseas. Like, I don't, it's one thing to study it, but to actually go live it. And so I started to just really pray and discern, what is God calling me to? Am I on the right path? Kind of questioning everything. And during this time, I actually got an email from Steve Vinton, who I mentioned earlier, the family friend, and he was starting a school in Tanzania, and he needed English teachers. And so I felt like this was God's calling, that I would go to Tanzania and see if I was really called to be a missionary. So I prayed about it, thought about it, I called my parents, and I said, God's calling me to drop out of school and go to Tanzania. And I know that God was in it because my parents were so supportive and understanding and agreed that this is what God had for me. So I left school and went to Tanzania. And Village Schools International is the organization. I was teaching English. I found out very quickly that I am not a teacher. It is not my calling. It was a struggle. But what I started to find is that I really was interested in medicine. I was seeing people with all sorts of, different things I'd never seen, medical things, and I was just fascinated to find the answers, to see what I could do to help. And so God used this to further clarify my calling from missionary to medical missionary. So this is a picture here with me and some of my students in Tanzania. And the girl with her arm around me, her name is Polita. Ironically, she became a nun, but she was just my favorite student. You're not supposed to have favorites, but you do. So she was one of my favorite students, and I want to share a story about praying for sardines that involves Polita. And I will say with each of my 5 mission trips I'm going to share a story. They're going to seem kind of random, and you're going to think that's just an odd story that you're telling me, but they do have a theme and they have a reason, and at the end I'm going to tie them all together. So, praying for sardines. Polita invited me to her house one day after school. She lived with 2 other students, and I was really excited to go visit them. When we got up to the door of their house, there was a really strong odor coming from inside. And when we sat down, it was even stronger, and I was starting to get a little overwhelmed. And they presented me with a meal that they had prepared, which was sardines. And what I learned later was that these girls had, for weeks, every time they had a little bit of extra money, they would buy some sardines. And they would buy some sardines until they had enough that they felt like they could present to me as a meal. And so this was something so generous, so kind, so sacrificial. And I started praying at that moment, God, let me eat these sardines and let let them stay in my stomach until I am out of here. And God answered that prayer. So that was the first missions trip. After that, I did go back to school, but I changed my major to biology. After I finished college, I went straight to graduate school in Philadelphia, studying public health and physician assistant studies. And then as soon as I paid off those loans, I was ready to go back overseas for my second missions trip. This time it was with the Jesuit Volunteer Corps. I was back in Tanzania for 2 years. I did a little teaching again. I taught writing this time, and then my main job was working at an HIV clinic. This is a picture of me with the 3 adults. There are other teachers at the high school that I was at. And then Francis brought his daughter to show off her beautiful Easter dress. That's at where I lived in Tanzania. So the story I want to share from this time is called Chupa versus Chupi. So I struggled to learn Swahili. Even after over 2 years there, it was hard. It's hard for me to learn a language, but it was really important for me to learn the language. So one day, a couple months into my time there, I was going to return a bottle. So when you're drinking something like a soda there, you buy it in a glass bottle and then you return it, and then they sell you a bottle and you get a discount on it. So I was returning my bottle to this man's store that I had been to many times, and he was a very strict Muslim man. So he did not touch, wouldn't shake my hand, he wouldn't even look me in the eye, and he was very kind of stern and reserved. So I was telling him, I'm returning your bottle, which is chupa. I messed it up at the end, and I said, I'm returning your chupi. Unfortunately, chupi means underwear. And I realized it, and he realized it, and I swear everything just froze for a few seconds. And in those few seconds, that man had a choice. He could have been really angry at me. He could have laughed at me. He could have told me to leave the store and thought that I was making fun or something. But he chose so graciously to just totally ignore me and just to go on, and I continued going to his store, but I never forgot that moment. While I was in Tanzania, I started dating Brian. That's a story for another day. We came back. We were talking about possibly getting married, but we decided before we get married, Brian had never been overseas before, and so I said you should do some sort of missions trip to make sure this is what you are called to as well. So we went to Haiti for 4 months. We were in different parts of the country doing different work. I was working at a malnutrition clinic, and this is a picture of Imano. He was one of the workers at the clinic and weighing the babies for the malnutrition clinic. So the story I want to share here is that Brian, in order to get around, he would often take a motorcycle taxi. And the motorcycle driver that he got to know was nicknamed Obama because he always drove the white people around. And Obama, from the first time he met me, he called me Brian's wife. And we would always say, no, I'm not his wife, I'm his girlfriend, but he would, no, it's where's your wife? Every time he saw Brian, he wasn't with me, where's your wife? Where's your wife? So that's my story of Brian and Obama. After we got back from Haiti, we did get married, and then we went together on our missions trip. We signed up with the Catholic Medical Mission Board. We were supposed to, it was a 2-year term to serve with them, but they could move us to different countries as they saw fit. So our first 6 months was at a hospital in Zambia. I thought I was going to serve at the hospital, which I did, but really a lot of what I did was teaching yoga. Because I became friends with this woman there in the middle. Her name's Twambo. She was the physical therapist at the hospital. And I just loved talking with her. I learned so much from her. She's so passionate about physical therapy. And as we were talking, she would often say, I'm trying to get people more active. I'm trying to get people, encourage my community to do more activities. And so we started talking. She learned that I do yoga just personally. And she asked if I would start leading a yoga class. And so I did, and we did a weekly yoga class, and it was wonderful. It was one of my highlights of being there. After being in Zambia for 6 months, the Catholic Medical Mission Board asked if we would move to South Sudan. We agreed. However, there was some political instability, and so we were kind of in limbo waiting for a while until finally they said, okay, you can't go to South Sudan, we're going to send you to Kenya. Well, my ears perked up because Kenya borders Tanzania, and I was really excited to introduce Brian to my friends and to the country that I had loved so much. So I said, okay, how about we take a 2-week vacation from when going from Zambia to Kenya. We'll stop in Tanzania for 2 weeks, and then we'll move on to Kenya. This was in early 2020, and so God had other plans. During those 2 weeks, the borders closed, the airports closed, and so those 2 weeks turned into 4 months. And we didn't really have work to do there. We were just visiting the Vintons that I talked about before. And we stayed, this is Sister Kalumba. She was my friend from when I was there for the 2 years. She worked at the high school, and she became my spiritual mentor and advisor. We had stayed in good touch. And so she took us in to her home. We had come, we were just going to be visiting. We were going to stay with her while we were visiting, and then as it elongated, she continued to show us amazing hospitality, letting us stay with her. This is a picture of Brian with Sister Kalumba and her nephew, John. God actually used this to refine my calling again. You know, I started with missionary and then medical missionary. And then during this time, Sister Kalumba was sharing with me her vision and calling to serve the elderly in her community and her dream of opening a free home for the elderly. And so since returning back to the U.S., Sister and I have continued to work together. We've started a nonprofit called Divine Mercy Center, where she's doing the work and I'm here advocating and fundraising. And actually just a couple weeks ago, we bought 10 acres of land in Tanzania so that we can start towards building our home. It's all of, her vision and her work. So those are my 5 mission trips that I've been on so far. And I didn't know, Bertha, if you wanted to come up and share kind of about your journey. And I have your picture up here. Do you want me to go back to it? Yes. Okay, I'll do it on here. So we talked about, we did this about mission, and then.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Bertha Spadone, and I am one of the daughters, and I am the vice president of the St. Clair chapter here at Grace Episcopal. And I am glad to share, I have not been served as a missionary, but I've lived in an area where we receive missionaries. And I work with Alyson to share what I know or what I've seen, what missionary work does. And I said, I can share a little bit. I'm originally from Cameroon, and there's a little village there where I'm from. It's called Balinyonga. It's in the northwest, and Cameroon is in West Africa. And we have missionaries of all kinds. My first point is you can have an intake of a missionary that may rub you the wrong way, depending how they serve. And looking and reading at Alyson's PowerPoint is amazing with what she did. And that is what missionaries are called to do. Missionaries are always a visitor. It's like, I visit your home, I should consider myself a visitor and let you show me around, rather than me visiting and bust through it and tell you, oh, this shouldn't be at this table, or this shouldn't be there, why don't you put that there? That is how missionaries rub people the wrong way. In my village in Bali, we have several missionaries, and we do have a lot of missionaries that comes in mission of Christianity. Like they come in to promote religion, to help people understand what Christian stands for, and also it, in the positive side of it, It helps us as human race to understand each other. And normally in Cameroon or in Africa as a whole, when you have missionaries around, it's people from other part of the world. It's not people around. And they've come in, and when they're sharing, they're basically sharing probably what that other side of the world knew about it, but didn't know that their brothers and sisters on the other side are equally the same as they are, or what, you know, what it's all about. And just talking with Alyson, I share a little bit with her. In my village, it's largely Christian. We have Catholic, we have Presbyterian, large Presbyterian Catholic community. And then we also have Muslims. It's like the tribe part of Christianity, which is the big group. But there are times that as Christians, we will be like, oh, I can't be this person. I can't be this denomination. Oh no, I can't go to the mosque. Oh, I don't know what they're praying there. It's also a mission. If you don't extend to know your brothers and sisters on your left or your right, you don't know what it stands for. But at the end, when you visit, we all stand in one thing. When we pray, it doesn't matter what language we pray in, we all stand in one thing. And I have just a little saying here that I looked at it and I said, you know, missionaries, like, what is a missionary? That would be a question on the floor, like, what do you understand as missionaries? Like, because I believe that all of us are called to serve. All of us have a mission, and all of us are missionaries. And just looking at my picture up here, I moved to United States in 2002. And I did share that a little bit with you. I moved first in New Orleans. And my first week being here, first or 2 weeks being here in the States, that was a mission for me, because that was totally a different place for me, from home to where I don't know as home. But how do I make it to be home? I walked around and I get to know the people around, and I also listen to the people around. And one of my take with that was, I said, she can put these out, because this is always behind my mind. I have one of my outfitters, because when I just first moved to the state, even up till today, I still just wear my African clothing a lot. So I went to a corner store on St. Charles Street. Just went there to get some few things. And on my way back, I felt like, you know, I have people on my shoulder or somebody walking around. And I take a turn to my house and I saw this man just walking. I'm like, okay, I've seen you from the store all the way to here. I've never seen you on my street. So that kind of rang a bell in my, so I turned and I looked at him and like, oh, I'm just admiring your outfit. I'm like, I get scared. I said, oh, thank you. And then he says, can I take a picture of you? I'm like, why? I was shocked. I was like, why? Why would you want to take a picture of me? He said, well, I just love your outfit. I would love to have a picture of you. I'm like, why would you take a picture of me that you don't know who I am? I have not done anything that, you know, it's a memory. I just saw this random lady coming out from the store, dressed in this outfit that I've never seen before. And I just took a picture of it and then I hung it on my wall. I'm like, Then I went home and Chris came back from work and I shared that with him. And he's like, oh my gosh, that's creepy. I'm like, okay. I didn't take it that way, but I'm still just trying to process. And then I think, yes, that may be something different from this person, because this person have never seen anything like that. But how would you approach a person that you've never seen to do that? And I think with missionaries from other parts of the country, like you were in Tanzania and all these places, others may look at you and be like, hey, what is she, you know, she's new, we never saw her here. But you as a visitor is the one that have to at least create a place to feel welcome, rather than, going in, which is the bad impression of missionaries. You go in and I'm here to spread the word of, the religion, the word of God, Christianity, but you are, I'm Episcopalian and you're Presbyterian or you're Muslim. No, we can't sit at the same table because that's not my religion. And again, when we did have a great, great missionary in Bali. He came in, he sat with the local, he lives in the local homes, he listened to the local, he learned the language, he eats meal with them, and he served. How did he serve? He didn't say people that were non-Christian, because there are some people that are non-Christian, they don't have any denomination. He didn't say you don't know Jesus, or you don't know God, or you're a pagan. There are some people as well in my village that call themselves that they are pagan. And he sat with them, and that's the work of Jesus. He starts with them, and he mingle with them, he eats with them, make friends, touch the untouchable, teach them what he knows, learn from them what he doesn't know, get to know the village, and spread the good news. And end up started reading the gospel in our language. He learned so much that he could also use his own knowledge and his own language to also teach the local people. And unfortunately, leaving Bali, he did not leave Bali with an empty hand. He left Bali with a wife. And he got married with his wife, and they have 4 children. He's my sister Grace over there can testify with that. He's an old person, and he still reach out to the Bali community wherever he's at. He still know what the Bali community stands for. He speaks Mungaka, the dialect, very well. He sits in a place. The difference is, like we said, it's just the skin color, but skin color is not what makes a person or a missionary, because we all have a mission. So when you are afraid of a color on that side and you can't see through it, then you can't see through yourself as well. And we have a saying in my village that we say it and we sing it. We said, my dear brothers and sisters, if you don't have love and the grace of God in your heart, all your messages and your mission out there to your brothers are in vain. Thank you for that.
Very good.
Yes, ma'am.
This is a coincidence, but my great maternal grandmother's from Cameroon.
Oh, wow.
I'm agnostic. I'm learning a lot about it.
Oh, I'm glad to hear. Thank you. That's nice. Do you have any idea what part of Cameroon she's from?
No idea, but I'm learning.
Okay, that's good. Good to know. Yes?
Did you let her take the picture?
No. No.
We didn't hear the question.
Okay, I'm sorry.
The question was, did I let him take the picture? And I said no. Any other question?
But I can understand the fascination because at one point I was thinking about drawing, but then I said, well, maybe Chris might not be too.
You were thinking about
Drawing you.
Hey, I'm here.
Chris knows.
I'm standing over here. Chris,
I know that, but I mean, do you remember that conversation?
ask for permission.
Yeah. But, just because of that, because of your features and your dress, it was very striking, and I can understand how it could be appealing, to someone that really could appreciate art and culture, that kind of thing. So, yeah.
I appreciate it. You can draw my picture. Anytime. Yes.
Bertha, tell us a story about a bad missionary, or somebody that...
Well, a bad missionary, which that would be your question, is someone that comes in, walk into a place. It could be here at Grace. It doesn't only have to be in Cameroon. It could be here at Grace. Walk in with a mission to teach Grace whatever mission he or she has. Rather than using your materials and using your knowledge, your ideas, what you've had already, and sit down and take time and listen where we're at, and then take it from there and utilize that, tells you, oh no, these are all bad. And then bring what he or she have at the table, introduce that, it sounds great, it looks good, it's really nice, and left it for us, and left. And we gave him, he or she, farewell. And then we use that for a couple of months or a year, and it breaks down. Then there's no tools to fix. We don't know how to, there are no materials, no supply for us to keep that going. We are short-handed. That happens in a lot of third world. Like a missionary will come in, maybe being a teacher, go to an old classroom, have the kids to teach the kids whatever lesson, maybe majority of the time is English. But if you do that, and then you do it in a very short amount of time, and you're not there that long, and you know you will leave, then you don't get to teach at least 2 local students to carry on the mission, and then you left. It goes nowhere. That's a bad missionary. And that's a bad mission. The mission is not accomplished. Right. It's halfway mission. And then the 2 stays there. I was going to share about the well that I was talking to you. I don't know if you want to have a break, or I could just go ahead since Helen Rose asked about a bad mission. Great example in my country, Cameroon, in some interior part of the village, is water problem. So having a clean water or a tap is tedious. It's good. It's not good. It's not there. But water is something that if you don't have, it's life. Water is life. You have to have water. So you have a missionary that will come in those rural areas to give water to the people, to make sure that the people have water. Then come in and install this well and dug this well. They have the well going. They are there. They have the system how the well would work. Eventually they leave. And then they leave us with the well, with something to clean the well with, and how to get water out. Then we continue using that well. It's giving the people water. It's serving the people very well. Then the well breaks down. It breaks down. There may be 2 or 3 people that know how to fix it. But eventually, the tools to fix the well is bad. And then there is no resources or like money being sent back from the missionary that have the mission. Because one thing I really love about Alyson's mission is that she's still in touch. When you leave and you're gone and you're not in touch or don't create a pathway, if you're not there in your absence, there are others that can take over or have, funds for them. then it's not useful. And the well will end up stays there, and then it stays open, and sooner or later you start having local kids falling in there, and that's what happens in places like that. Then you started having this notion in those areas with the village people, when they hear about missionary coming in, they're like, no. Coming to do what? Those that have come and did this and that, they did not carry on the mission and continue the mission, and now it's not serving us, and instead we're grieving through it. Because it's normally children falling in those wells, and that's a bad mission. Yeah. Any other questions? Or any other things that we can talk about?
It's not the safest thing in the world to do either, because sometimes missionaries can be, be held hostage and all that kind of stuff.
Yes, that as well, and that do happen, especially in places with war. And that's why advice to all missionaries is always to listen. When you're in a place and you see that the local, the people, the brothers and sisters are having a little tough, it's good for you to listen. And with us as Christians, meditation is not just only, you make a time to meditate. You can meditate anyway. And listening is very important. If you are a visitor, and we always say that, if you are a visitor anywhere, it's always good for you to take one step and just listen to what is going on around you. Missionaries, a lot of the missionaries that get hostage is that when they told them it's unsafe, you can't do this at this time, well, but I'm here for my mission, I have to complete it. Then you get yourself into that problem, so in that situation. But if you the mission is there. It might be hold for 1 year, 2 years, 10 years. Your mission is there, can always be completed. But you can't put yourself in danger to push forward at that time to complete that mission. Because I believe that all missionaries, with us that are here, we have mission, and the mission is not complete. We are all on that journey of mission. Yes?
Bertha, I want to ask you and Alyson both. When missionaries go into these situations to spread the word of Christ,
Right.
how do they handle other religions in the area, like Muslims and pagans and whatever? If their mission is to spread the word of Christ, are they intent on doing that, even to people with different religions?
Yes, they do. They do. Just like I said from the beginning, is that when you go to a place, a country, a house, a home, as a missionary to spread the word of religion, Christianity especially, your first thing is to be a guest. You have to consider yourself a guest. If you don't consider yourself a guest, that's where you run into a problem. Because if you consider yourself a guest, you know what your mission is. It doesn't matter if it's Muslim, non-Christian, Catholic, Episcopalian, whatever, but you consider yourself a guest, someone that have come to spread the good news of Jesus, you will have room. Even to people that don't want to listen to you, but just because you show your appearance as I am a guest, they will give you a seat and they will listen to you. I believe that.
But my deeper question is it, quote, right?
Right?
To try to convert these wonderful Muslims into being Christians?
No. No, I don't think it's right to try to convert anyone. You can speak to someone and that person decided, I'm going to be, but you can't try to Because that's where I said, about ministry. If I comes to you and you said, oh, Bertha, I am Episcopalian. I'm like, oh no, you shouldn't go to Episcopal church. Catholic church is great. What are you doing in Episcopal church? Now, I'm not spreading, I'm telling you what to do. I'm not spreading the religion. I'm not sharing what God wants us to share. I'm not doing the work of Jesus. I'm telling you, you have to follow me, because if you don't follow me, you're wrong. The path you're walking on is not the right one. Mine is the right one. But that is not what Jesus did. Jesus says, follow me. He didn't say, you who is at this end and you're going here, you come and follow me, and you who is here, no, don't come, because this is who I am. So that's what I'm saying with a Christian ministry, and you are out there to spread the good news of Jesus, Christianity, love and compassion. You have to take anyone where they are and where they're standing. I believe that.
Thank you.
Anything you want to add to that? Are there any other questions? Well, we can do more questions at the end, too.
I was just saying, if you want to touch base
on
with,
that.
yeah.
I think you answered it perfectly. I have nothing to add to that. So, thank you so much, Bertha. So, I'm going to go through this. Okay, so defining a missionary. Bertha got us off to a great start here. Can we do it in one word is the question. So to get us thinking about what this one word might be, let me ask a different question. It might seem a little odd. What did your mom teach you about how to act when you go to someone's house? So think about it. You're a little child, 7, 8 years old. You're about to go to your friend's house. She bends down and she says, when you go over there, you better behave. What else?
Don't embarrass me.
Yeah, there you go. Yep, represent the family well.
Remember your manners.
Awesome. Any other thoughts?
This is not your house.
Remember, it's not your house. Yes. Something about hungry.
You're not hungry.
You're not hungry.
You will eat whatever they put in front of you.
Yeah. There you go. Be polite. Be polite. Absolutely. Yes. If you were going to spend the night, would it be appropriate for you to, bring your own pillow and your own sheets and maybe your own bed because you didn't like what was over there? Would your mom tell you to do that? No. All right. So, can anyone guess then what our one word is to be? Well, I think I have one more slide. Yes. Okay. So possible answers. I think we hit on most of these. You should listen, right, to what the adults are telling you at the place that you are at. Be respectful, polite, we got, obey, represent the family well, have fun, be grateful for what's there, remember that you're a guest. All right, so any guesses on what our one word is as a missionary? Is a guest, a Samaritan, guest, Bertha said a visitor, yeah.
Respect.
Yeah, person that, we're going to go there and respect what's there. So yes, my one-word definition of a missionary would be that a missionary is a guest. And you may remember some of those weird stories that I shared before. Maybe we can kind of think through them again. So I shared about praying for sardines. Can someone think how that ties into being a guest?
You ate the sardines.
Right, sardines.
Prayed about it.
Accepting what's there, being grateful for what's there. Talked about chupa versus chupi, returning my bottle. How would that tie in with being a guest?
Learn the language.
Learn the language, exactly. Learn the customs of what's there. And that moment reinforced for me, oh yeah, I'm a guest. I don't know what I'm doing here. And I'm reliant on the kindness and the generosity of others. This one, Brian with Obama calling me his wife. no big deal. We were very quick to correct him. We were very quick to say, no, you're wrong. That is not true. But actually, Obama was the first person to call me Brian's wife. He knew. He was the first one. I should have listened. I should have, or I should have at least asked, why do you say that? I should have listened. I should have not have been so quick to think I knew.
Right, he saw something that you didn't see.
Exactly. He saw something that I didn't see. Exactly. And sister's generosity, again, I was literally a guest in her house. And so that really reinforced to me to continue living like a guest in the whole country, that as I was reliant on her kindness and generosity in that home, I was reliant on the kindness and generosity of all those around me. So yes, a missionary is a guest. And wrap it up here, like all Christians, we follow Jesus' example. So I like to think of, when I was in the medical field, I would look to the stories of Jesus healing people. That was, my calling was to heal people, so I wanted to see how Jesus healed people. When I think of Jesus as a missionary, I think that he came to dwell among us. He didn't come to overturn the ruling authorities. He was humble, open to new customs. He shared his skills and insights, as Bertha touched on as well, that he was a guest here, and he was open-handed and welcoming to all. All right. Any other questions for Bertha or myself?
Listen, what was your purpose in being a missionary? What was your goal? And how is it different from going over there and just enjoying the culture for 2 years?
It's a great question. I think it changed over time. She asked, what was my goal? To be honest, at the beginning, it was very. I wanted to experience a different country, a different culture. I was excited to travel as a 19-year-old dropping out of school, and just wanted to see what the world has. I knew that the world was a lot bigger than the little bubble that I grew up in, and so when people. There's a part of that, and I have to be honest about that, is to learn about another part of the world, to grow. And like I shared earlier about our mission is to love God and love others, and you can do that anywhere. I just felt like God was calling me to do that in Tanzania. And then my work, teaching English and working at the HIV clinic. But it changes. I think the goal kind of changes over time.
Hey, do you think in the end, people were better off without the well?
Better off without the well. What do you think, Bertha?
Yes, I agree with you.
Without it?
Yes,
Yeah,
people were better off without the well.
you find other ways to get water.
Because before the well, that was a good thought, that what he just said, and if I didn't mention it, but before the well came, the local people have been there for long, and they know how to get water. They know where clean waters are. I grew up that we would walk probably like 9 minutes away from my house to a spring to get drinking water. Water just to drink, not to do dishes or cook. And we have several spots in the village where you get drinking water, you get cooking water, and then you just get water that is like cleaning or washing or doing whatever. But they were different spots that we, the locals and the villagers, the men and women, they know where that water was, and they take care of it. They clean it, they preserve it, it comes out. Sometimes they'll just cut a bamboo. Sometimes these things pop up in Facebook today too. Like you will probably go on your Google, sometimes there will be a slide that you will see in some village somewhere. They'll have a bamboo like split and have it to have clean water come through it and kind of run down like a faucet. And the local people will do that. They will clean that spring, and they will have a nice natural material how to collect water. And we'll go up there with our buckets and jugs and collect clean water. we were better off without the well, because the well, we,
How many blocks could you walk in 8 minutes?
how many blocks?
You said it took about 8 minutes from your house, how many?
We don't have homes there with blocks, we have,
What do you think mileage?
probably like 2 miles,
Oh.
2 miles.
And
Because
then-
it's,
Then you're gonna carry the buckets back?
yeah. And I think Alyson can relate to that. And sometimes the bucket, the water is in the bucket and then it's full. It probably be like, 10 gallon or 12. And it's on your head and there's no lid and you're walking with it.
On your head?
And mothers always told their children, when you go get that water, make sure you come home with water, not an empty bucket. Because we could literally come home with an empty bucket. Like you get home, the water is almost down there. Yes?
So Bertha, what could that missionary have done that would have been more lasting benefit to your village than this well? I mean, if this person had really been listening to the people in your community, is there anything that you can think of that maybe would have really had a lasting effect that would have been more of a benefit to the people than, oh, I'm going to come in and help you build this well and leave and it doesn't work anymore. So
That's a great question, Paula. Yes. I think if the missionary would have listened more to the people, he or she would have worked where we get the water at the spring. Go to the spring, see the spring, the material that either the cement or whatever material that he uses to dug the well would have helped the local people more to clean the spring and work around the spring in more safer way, because when you dig a well, you probably cement around it, and digging a well is not cheap. The money that you take to dig the well, he or she could have taken that money, listen to the local, go and check where they get water and see the condition of that area and fix that area for them. That would have been more beneficiary and more lasting.
I would think too, a resource for spare parts, like for a motor.
Right.
You had, those resources, to replace those parts.
Mm-hmm.
Probably could have been of value.
Exactly.
Value.
Yes. Repairing.
I've always admired what Bill and Melinda Gates are doing in terms of installing toilets in a lot of places and work toward hygiene.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it takes money.
It
But
does.
what's the difference between a Bill Gates? Is he a missionary?
I don't think his mission is to,
I think he
I think he
supports
supports,
people
right.
who are missionaries.
But that's still a missionary.
Well, his mission is to make billions of dollars
And
and give it
support.
to somebody.
That's right.
To go be the missionary.
Thank you.
I don't think he is a mission, him or his wife are missionaries.
No.
Except they always go to these places
Yes.
and keep a touch with them.
Yeah,
That's a good answer. His mission is to, make all this money and
And he does
then
great.
support. And once he support, he keeps,
Keeps coming.
So is that a missionary?
no.
Why not?
Well, it depends on him. If he considers himself a missionary, with like what Rian says, his mission is to support the people. But a missionary is not a support group. I could choose to build a school, but not being a missionary.
But Bertha,
Yes.
along the agent's grace, as long as you are an agent of
Right.
grace, you know, and if you have the finances or whatever, and you projected to do a certain thing,
Right.
then I think that you can be a missionary. You might not be in the sense that you defined it, but
Right.
because you are an agent of grace, you know, that means that you're doing a better good, you know, for someone or someplace.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what we did talk about. Like, if you can look the definition of a missionary, it tells you what the definition is. You know, missionaries is not only spreading Christ's words. You can be a missionary to give education to in people that are in need. You can be a missionary working in the hospital. You can be a missionary helping people that are in need of sustainable food. You can be a missionary there's missionary of all kinds.
Is it necessary to go to another country to be a missionary? Or can you be a missionary right here, whatever you do?
You can be a missionary right here. Yes.
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 Okay.
Okay.
I wanted to say that the difference between what Bill Gates is doing and a missionary is love. Because
Exactly.
that's a commodity that, as a true missionary, and you talked about what a true missionary was like and the effect that he had, and you will know them by the love that they have. And so that is the difference.
It is, and that's what missionary stands for. You know, you're not only spreading Christianity, the love is there, the passion is there. You have to have all these. Like I did say my one-line word here, you know, if as a brothers and sisters, if you don't have the love of Christ and the love of one another in your heart, then your own message that you're spreading to your brothers and sisters is in vain, because the love is not there. So how can you share your good news? Yes, sister.
Ditto on what you just said, and I think that we have a difference of opinion in the Johnson household there as to what a missionary entails. And that is how we came up with this topic today. What is the role of a missionary in modern society? Because I think it has evolved from what we knew initially what a missionary was supposed to do. And that always had a religious aspect to it. And now we're broadening that to say, no, you don't go in and change people's culture. You learn to adapt to the culture. And through your works, you spread the word of God.
Right.
And I think it's through your actions is how that is interpreted. And we went totally astray with some of the things we did to different cultures, trying to spread the word of God. And we're reaping some of that, you know.
Thank you.
You know, after listening to all of this, I remembered what she said. Her one-word definition is to be a guest. So I'm thinking that probably the difference between what Gates is doing and what we kind of think a missionary is to be physically present. He's not going anywhere. He's not engaging personally with whomever he is trying to help. So that may be the difference between being the missionary and providing goods or things like that, just off the hand.
I would agree. And I would also say about if you can be a missionary anywhere. I almost put a slide and I actually put it in and took it out. There's a quote that I love that we're all just friends walking each other home. And so everywhere we are, we're a guest. Everywhere we are, we're welcoming someone in, or we're being welcomed by someone. And so I think that even my neighbors, to bring it back to the beginning, you know, they were missional in my life. They were sharing things with me just across the street. So I do think that you can carry that mission of loving God and loving others wherever you are. As a missionary, you know, as we defined it here, specifically as a guest who lives in another place. But you don't always have to cross countries to learn how to be a guest. There's plenty, especially in Houston, there's plenty of places that you can go and be around people who have a lot to teach you, that have different life experiences than you, and that you can learn that habit of being a guest and listening well. I have a prayer to close us if there's no other questions. So this prayer was shared when I finished my 2 years with the Jesuit Volunteer Corps. We had a retreat at the end, and they talked to us about, you know, the work of a mission of loving God and loving others. It's never done, right? We're always carrying it on. It's never fully complete, and sometimes that can be discouraging. You think, oh, there's so much to do. The world, there's so many terrible things. It's so overwhelming. What am I supposed to do? And so I just wanted to kind of wrap up my talk with this prayer. It helps now and then to step back and take the long view. The kingdom is not only beyond our efforts, it is beyond our vision. We accomplish in our lifetime only a tiny fraction of the magnificent enterprise that is God's work. Nothing we do is complete, which is another way of saying that the kingdom always lies beyond us. No statement says all that could be said. No prayer fully expresses our faith. No confession brings perfection. No pastoral visit brings wholeness. No program accomplishes the church's mission. And no set of goals and objectives includes everything. This is what we are about. We plant seeds that one day will grow. We water seeds already planted, knowing that they hold future promise. We lay foundations that will need further development. We provide yeast that produces effects beyond our capabilities. We cannot do everything, and there is a sense of liberation in realizing that. This enables us to do something, and to do it very well. It will be incomplete, but it is a beginning, a step along the way, an opportunity for God's grace to enter and do the rest. We may never see the end results, but that is the difference between the master builder and the worker. We are workers, not master builders, ministers, not messiahs. We are prophets of a future, not our own. Amen.
All right, at this time, we'll take a break. We can take a restroom break. If you come back to your tables, you know, Dion asked you originally, before we started the session, to write down what you felt a missionary was, or what the role of a missionary was. You can talk in your groups and see if it's changed any after hearing the presentations that you made today. And then we also have some reference material for you. You're welcome to take these with you. You probably get, if you are a member, you probably get this in the mail. I don't know if you looked at them, but this was fortuitous that it came at this time because it talks about the missionary work that's going on here in Texas by different churches in the diocese. So we're going to discuss that. Members of St. Clair should have looked in this and already know some of the information to share with you. And there's also an article that was printed. Whose kingdom are we building? And you feel free to take this with you as well. And we'd like to discuss that when we come back in the break. That will be followed by Holy Eucharist and then lunch. So, how do you?
Don't forget a certain day.